gracias. Modera la mesa Macarena Machimbarrena, Strategy and Impact Associate de Ship2B Ventures. Y ella ahora a continuación nos presenta sus ponentes. Gracias, Macarena. Adelante.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. Let's sit down. So, it feels like we're always hearing about a crisis. Climate change, biodiversity, COVID, inflation. But by definition, a crisis is really difficult to predict, but it can be mitigated. On the other hand, if a crisis is not a cure, you don't really know what prevented it from happening. In this panel, what we want to discuss is the role that impact investments can have in avoiding and mitigating a crisis. How can different investment approaches help prevent the buildup of imbalances and increase resilience when they do occur? So today I'm here with Cliff Pryor, CEO of the Global Steering Committee of Impact Investing, and Agustin Vitorica, CEO and co-founder of Gawa Capital. I'll let them introduce themselves, but before we get started, we want to ask the public a question, which is, do you believe that impact investing can save us from upcoming crises? No. Oh, wow. You guys have a lot of work to do.
Raise the hands, the ones that believe that impact investing will save us from the crisis. Who believes impact investing will save?
One.
Only one? Three,
Two,
four?
three.
It's incredible.
Oh, wow. You really, really do have a lot of work to do here.
So why did you come here to start with?
Okay, let's start with Cliff Pryor. You're primarily a market builder and a policy supporter. It would be great if you can start by explaining a little bit about the work you do and how you see the link between impact investing and increased global resilience.
Sure. Well, look, I should start by saying that I am relentless in being positive and have been since birth, and it's probably some kind of mania. I may need, support. However, I am going to stay positive on this. And so Global Steering Group for Impact Investing, just as a starting point, we drive impact forward. We bring together influential stakeholders to help shift economies for positive outcomes for people and planet. And we do that through a diverse global group of countries with national advisory boards for impact. There are 60 countries at the moment in this group, and all of them working across demand, intermediation, supply of capital, working with regulators and governments, working with advisors and so on. And also developing tools. So some of the tools that have come out of the GSG movement over the last few years, impact tools like results-based finance, what used to be called social impact bonds before somebody noticed that actually they're not a bond, so they're a contract. So we changed the name there. Wholesale funds, an ever-growing number of countries which have domestic pools of capital specifically for impact. Wonderful to have Ghana, the first African wholesaler. Finance tools that have just been developing to help address the 1 billion people in informal settlements, slums, favelas, etc. 1 in every 8 people in the world do not have a settled home. But also influencing policy, G7, G20 series. Last year, creating a G7 impact task force covering both development of impact transparency, as was being discussed in the last panel, harmonization of the tools there, and also mobilization of capital into emerging economies with a just transition approach. So this is market building, it's policy shaping, and yeah, in terms of the crisis and the multiple crisis, the poly crisis, as some people have said, coming together, and climate change is now for the first time this year, has been the greatest harm to vulnerable populations. So what used to be quite separate of, there was climate action over here and there's social action over there, no longer works. We now believe that climate challenges and social challenges are inextricable. When you see what happened, just to take one example, what happened in Pakistan, 1/3 of the country in a flood, which is a flood plain, so there are no hills to go to. You can't run to it. And 1/3 of the population. You think of India having 2 weeks in 50 Celsius. The upper limit of how human beings can survive is 55 Celsius. We're really at the edge of what can happen. So, what's our view on that? Our view is that, the climate change is already hurting vulnerable people, and climate action needs the will of the people for the climate action to happen. So this connection is absolutely crucial. So we believe that impact investing is a key part, not the only solution, but a key part of the solution for both resilience for people, resilience for climate. And we believe that also opens up the biggest investment opportunities of the coming decade. Climate action and the technology around climate action is going to be the new gold rush. And that is where I'm going to stop. Okay.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. I guess to kind of be able to visualize how it is that impact investing can help us upfront the coming crises, it's really helpful to think about investments and make them tangible. So today, Agustin, it would be great as an experienced investor in the sector for many years, if you can explain really what types of investments you've done and how you've really seen that they've translated into positive results and increased resilience.
Sure, I will. Just before that, I became demoralized when I heard that Cliff was saying that Ghana has a wholesaler, and where is that wholesaler that we need in Spain? Why hasn't this happened? When we have practitioners in Spain working for over 10 years in impact investing. So that's my first call. Gawa Capital, second, I want to congratulate SIP2B for this amazing event, and the themes that are being discussed are very much to the point of what we're looking for to really make impact investing advancing now. Thanks very much for inviting me to speak over here. Gawa Capital is an impact investing firm with 13 years of history. We launched 4 different funds. We have over 200 million of assets under management, which at the European level may not sound very much, but in Spain, unfortunately, we represent over 40% of the market. We only invest in emerging markets. So we think the market failures and the underserved needs, where it's easiest to see them, is in emerging markets, which doesn't mean that impact investing towards Spain is not important. Of course it is. But our focus is emerging markets. We invest at the intersection of financial inclusion with agriculture and now with climate finance. And maybe what sets up some differences between us and our competition is that we tie our performance fees to the audited impact of our investments, audited by a social auditor that is chosen by the investors in our funds. So when we look at investments and companies, we look for social enterprises. But our theme is transforming social enterprises. Not all social enterprises are ready really to solve market failures. So we believe very much on the transformative power of impact investing so that you can come in a company and the company becomes better in terms of social performance when you leave the investment and when you initially started investment. And for that, technical assistance is key. For us, technical assistance and transformation is essential if we want to differentiate between impact investing and ESG investing, which is great. ESG investing, no question, is amazing, but there are certain differences in terms of transformative power and additionality between impact investing and ESG investing. So in terms of examples, I will put 2 examples of 2 investments that we did. One of them is related to the climate crisis. So we invested in Mega, which is a financial institution in Mexico, that provides ecosystem-based adaptation assets for smallholder farmers cultivating berries, beautiful and juicy berries in Mexico. And this company provides ecosystem-based adaptation like drip irrigation, resilient seeds to climate change, macro tunnels, vertical farming, basically using the nature to provide resilience against climate change and regenerating the soil. Apart from that, this financial institution puts in contact these smallholder farmers to traders that provide technical assistance to them and access to markets. So, when harvesting period comes and the berries are there, in less than 48 hours, those berries are in shelves in the US supermarkets. So that's one example, how to create resilience against climate change. But I will also put one example related to the COVID crisis. We made one investment in an agri-tech in India called Waykul Foods. Waykul Foods gets all the agriculture supply from over 80,000 smallholder farmers in India. And to these farmers, by the way, they also provide regenerative agriculture training to gain, so that they can gain resilience against climate change as well. But something that they did during the COVID crisis is, they put end-to-end value chain where the products of these 80,000 smallholder farmers go to over 100,000 Kirana stores in India. Kirana stores, for you that haven't been in India, are small mom-and-pop stores in urban areas, very small retailers, usually run by women. So when COVID came and the lockdown came, there was really a liquidity problem among these Kirana stores, that didn't have the liquidity because the sales started to go down because people stay at home. Didn't have the liquidity to pay Waykul for the products. So what Waykul decided to do is to give the products on credit so that the Kirana stores didn't need to pay immediately, and they managed to pay later once the lockdown disappeared and people started buying again. So those 2 out of many examples of how impact investing can really mitigate the consequences of crisis.
And if you had to think across the board on, really briefly, what is it that you're looking for in an investment to kind of make sure that it does increase resilience, what would that be?
Well, I think there has to be, first and for all, social mission, but it's not enough. You really need to adapt your processes, your personnel, and your products to the vulnerable populations. And that's why technical assistance is so important. When we arrive to social enterprises, we see the social mission. We do an initial social audit when we do the due diligence, but that's not enough. We find deficiencies in the social performance systems, in their products, in their personnel, and in their systems. And for that, what we want to make sure when we do an investment is that the potential investee will use the technical assistance in a proper way to really maximize the impact of that investment. So management teams where we are not able to agree on their more inclusive and green transition will not be invested by us. But those management teams that are really looking to maximize their social and environmental impact and are willing really to be efficient in implementing technical assistance projects, those are the ones that we will invest in.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, maybe going back to the market, now that we've understood these specific examples, as we were talking earlier in the earlier panel, the market's still very nascent and it's evolving a lot. Cliff, what do you think is, going to be essential in this evolution to make sure that the market heads in the right direction so that it does actually, build resilience, mitigate crises from happening?
Yeah, because actually, it is very nascent. I mean, 2008 was the last big recession, and impact investing was so tiny then that it didn't really notice. Now it does. This is our first recession for the impact movement, and we're still teenagers trying to work out what's our approach. I might not look like a teenager, but the impact movement is a teenager. So we've got quite a lot of learning to do, but we are making some big changes. We used to be activists, and now actually we're in charge of some of the major levers of finance. We've got the new regulatory systems, including in Europe, but also in other jurisdictions right across the world. We've got global harmonization of impact standards coming through with the ISSB, which will be a real game changer. People were talking about how important that was in the last panel. We have tightening up by key jurisdictions on ESG. So lots of things are coming together. It is going to be a rough ride. Just today, we saw that GFANZ, the Glasgow Alliance, has just quietly separated itself from key UN commitments. So, there are some steps backwards as well as forwards, but as long as there are 2 steps forward and 1 step back and not the other way, I'm absolutely fine with that. It is going to be a rough ride. We need to put our efforts on the positive and not focus on how terrible it is on the steps back, because that's just a waste of time, and the people who are stepping backwards will be dinosaurs. It's the people who will be stepping forward who will be getting the new unicorns. And that's where I see the future. Yeah, we do have a future of impact valuation. This, again, it was mentioned in the last panel that we will be, in a few years, maybe 3 years, maybe 5 years, putting monetary amounts on the good and bad that companies create through Impact Weighted Accounts Initiative, a new foundation for valuation of investments, the VBA working on corporates. There's a whole set of organizations coming to this. And it's a new global financial order. For impact investing to succeed through this recession, we need everybody here and everybody working in this field to participate actively, to influence the design of this new world financial order that's coming along, to use the tools and experience that we've got, far beyond actually intentional investing, and also to influence all and every investor to include impact along with risk and return. And I think, again, that was said last time. We've been through stages, our early stages, small-scale funds into social enterprises. We've had a period with mainstream asset managers, mainstream banks, etc. Now we're using these impact tools ever more to just say, well, we don't care really whether you were intentional or not. Actually, we're going to make sure that your impact is visible, and your companies are going to have that visibility, and the population will choose. Do you want to be in the future, or do you want to be in the past?
Super interesting. Also really like that you're bringing it back to all investors, which is, I'm putting you on the spot here a bit, but what would be your ask for investors, all investors, when it comes to what can they do to increase resilience? What are the things that they should be looking for? Do you have a specific ask for them?
Well, again, I think it's in that area of positivity that we've already seen in solar panels a 90+% increase in the cost. As we get more and more of the future technologies that will assist us with both climate change and the social benefits, that's what we should be looking at. We should be looking at the innovations for the future. The next range of electric batteries, for example, are looking like they're going to be another 90% down on the pricing. So we should really be focusing on that positive area. We have some very big challenges if I just look at the just energy transitions. So in South Africa, in Indonesia, in a number of countries which are emerging countries and have a lot of coal mining. What are we going to do about this? The program of just energy transitions is intended to be moving out of coal into clean and looking after the people who are disturbed by that, who need reskilling. And some of these are very, very challenging. I mean, in South Africa, 150,000 miners, coal miners, 130,000 in one province. It is the economy of the province. This isn't just a question of what you're going to reskill. You're probably going to have significant migration to other parts of the population. This is going to take a lot. 8.5 billion has been committed. That is a starter. It will need more, but again, the more we look at the opportunities, particularly the technological opportunities, the more it becomes feasible. And if I had a challenge to Uli's point earlier, we've put a lot of money into the SDGs, but it wasn't the right kind of money. We don't have the blended finance. Well, we need to have that blended finance to make it work. We need the Global Blended Finance Initiative, which was signed up in Indonesia, with the technical side of it. We need the skills of the Catalytic Capital Consortium, which has been working on this for some years now, putting catalytic capital into different areas and then researching to get, how is catalytic capital and blended capital most useful. So I think that investing in adaptation, in mitigation, in resilience, in agri-tech, in cheaper, less extractive batteries, insurance on your mobile in sub-Saharan Africa, hundreds of millions of people taking up these kinds of products. I think there's a lot of positivity there. We see the innovation already. The question is how we can get the volumes and in the right place. Technology for innovation for people, for climate, and for impact weighted accounts on that new world order.
Fantastic, thank you. I think you've already sort of alluded to this, so it's great. It's going to be a great segue to the next question, which is around, the bottom of the pyramid is really the population that is most affected by crises in general, and blended finance, as you were talking about, and also public-private partnerships are often hailed as the holy grail when it comes to reaching these populations. At Gawa, you have a lot of experience with, you're pioneers in blended finance in Spain. And want to ask you about what challenges you've faced when designing and operationalizing these blended finance structures.
Yes. Yes, so blended finance, I think, is Impact Investing 2.0, but it brings with it a lot of challenges. First one is time. Initial phases, how to organize and approve catalytic capital from public sources, that's a big challenge. It took us 4 years between the design of Uruma Fund, which is our blended finance fund, to the launch of it. It was 4 years. The contribution from the Spanish government, the Spanish Development Agency, once it was pre-approved, it needed to be approved by the Cabinet Council in Spain. So imagine how long it took really to get that contribution. Also, the alignment of interest was really challenging, between COFIDES, which is the Spanish DFI, the European Union money that they mobilized, private investors, private banks that distributed the product like CaixaBank. So aligning all of those different interests and different risk, return, and impact ratios, was really, really challenging. Then once it was launched, operational challenges were really very big because catalytic capital providers are partners in the project. They are, in a way, co-founders of the project. So they are involved in every single stage of the investing process. So every time we do an investment, we need to talk to the European Union. We need to visit the European Union delegation in the target territories, the Spanish cooperation delegation as well, if there is one. And that's really challenging. And the catalytic capital providers, what they're looking for in every single investment is that you prove the additionality. So proving additionality in every investment is really challenging. You need to prove what is going to happen that you're bringing that wouldn't happen without your investment, So having to prove additionality, that's really, really, really tough. And just very quickly, because we're running out of time, I think blended finance is the way to deliver the $90 trillion that we need for a just transition. There is no way of mobilizing enough capital for emerging markets for a just transition without blended finance. I mean, we need blended finance to mobilize institutional capital at scale. But blended finance will not be enough. We need to find solutions to put adaptation and mitigation climate smart assets in the hands of those that really need them, How are you going to put in the hands of smallholder farmers adaptation assets? How are you going to put adaptation assets in the hands of small businesses in emerging markets, These are really already excluded communities by themselves, And so you need to find ways of reaching this capillarity to go into these excluded communities. And I think our theory of change over here is that we need financial institutions. Small-scale financial institutions are the ones that really have the networks in the rural areas, in the excluded areas, but we need to carry a transformation of them. They don't have, as I said, the products, the systems, the personnel to really deliver solutions to small businesses and to smallholder farmers, So we will need technical assistance to carry this transformation and also to carry their green transformation so that they can offer green products to the vulnerable communities. That's I think, will be a nice way to reaching capillarity.
I guess there's something that you're saying there around local ownership, no? Local ownership to drive capillarity.
It's essential. I mean, impact investing is about transforming the local ecosystem. I mean, if we want to comply with the impact management project says about impact investing, the impact needs to last even once you leave the investment. The only way to do that is to leave companies, transform and prepare to ensure that the flow of capital continues even once you left. And for that, blended finance and technical assistance part of blended finance is essential.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I think we have time for one more question, Cliff.
Oh.
Just wanting to make sure that you can cover this. You mentioned just transition earlier. And of course, the concept of equity keeps on coming up in this conversation. How do we ensure that everyone benefits from impact investing and no one is left behind? And I just wanted to ask you, what does the concept of just transition mean to you? And how do we enable it when we go back to the market and that it's growing? What is fundamental to a just transition?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, actually, the just transition was first spoken around in Paris. So what is it, 7 years ago? But it's only just probably a year back where people started thinking, okay, what are the conditions for a just transition? And what people have developed out of this, particularly from the G7 Impact Task Force last year, was the climate action, the socio-economic action, and community voice. And I think that's, that steps one stage further from what we've heard about E and S of ESG. Because it's the E, obviously, it's the social side, but it's also that crucial community voice. So if you're closing down a coal mine in South Africa, who has voice about how that change is organized? And to date, we've talked about the social factor and the climate factor, but having the local voice, the community voice, is absolutely critical. And the reason why people have gone down a road which is actually quite tricky to achieve is because we know now, I think that that to get the climate change, it's on and off, to get the climate change happening, which clearly is sometimes on and sometimes off, you absolutely have to have the will of the people. We've seen it in France. We saw it in the Gilets jaunes. A tiny little increase in the petrol tax. Yeah, okay. We saw it with the Gilets jaunes, with a tiny increase in petrol tax, in gas tax, and there was a rebellion. We're not going to get the climate change that we absolutely need unless we have the will of the people. To have the will of the people, you need to have the community voice. That is the challenge. It is not an easy challenge.
I'm scared to ask the question around whether the public. I'm scared to ask the question about whether the public thinks that we've now convinced them that impact investing can save them from the upcoming crisis. But I hope it's a yes. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you too.